Our buddy Art Stapleton with the record covers the Giants every single day with Armin and Levac on 104.5 The Team. Art, what is the dynamic between this time last week, what the atmosphere felt like after the Giants loss, and then this time this week coming off of that fourth quarter comeback and display of offensive awesomeness?
Well, very different in terms of, you can talk all you want about how you can get over the hump and you have the chances and the talent in certain areas. And then when you do it, it kind of validates things. So it will be very interesting to see how the Giants go forward here going into the final three games. But there was some validation for working hard and putting in the extra time. I mean, guys, one thing that resonated in the locker room after the Miami game was the fact that this team, not that they exhaled, but they almost, again, I use that term validation. They finally got something to say, you know what, for all our hard work, for everything we've done, for as close as we've been, we finally made the plays to get over the hump. And I think that the best part about that for them is the 84-yard touchdown pass from Eli Manning to Odell Beckham Jr. that put the game on ice was designed essentially at 5 o'clock on game night when Eli and Odell put in extra film work looking at Miami and said, well, if they give us this look, if they give us quarters defense and the way it was set up, then I'm going to call this play. And Odell Beckham Jr. said after the game, he was kind of amazed because Eli Manning, they hadn't practiced that play. I think he said in a while, but I'm guessing really back to the early part of the season. And Eli calls that play, sees the coverage, Odell beats the coverage, touchdown Giants. So that's the kind of thing that they're trying to hammer home going into this stretch run.
So, Art, you're saying that the Giants are suddenly putting in more effort? What are we supposed to make of that?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily putting more effort. I think it's attention to details. At 5 o'clock on game night, most teams, most players are not looking to do that. It just so happened that the quarterback and the star receiver said, you know what, let's look a little bit more. It's going beyond the X's and O's. It's being able to, when you leave your facility this time of year, the losing teams, the players go out to dinner and they're not at fault. There's nothing that ties them to their professional team when they leave their job. You leave your job, you guys aren't going to do a podcast on your own, at, 9, 10 o'clock at night just for the fun of it, just because you want to get better at doing your show the next day. That's essentially what the Giants and really what most teams, when they get on a run this late in the year, you don't want to leave. Your last meeting is done at the facility and it's time to go home, and guys look at it and go, you know what? We just didn't get that scheme that we put in last week. I just didn't see that finer detail. Let's go back in the room together and look at it. You guys want to go do it? That's the kind of thing that attention to detail winning teams this time of year will put in. And I think for the first time, the Giants see that, and I think they're hoping that more guys buy into that. You don't doubt that with Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr., but there are a lot of young guys on this team that all they knew up until Monday night was, well, we're close, but we lose. And now the narrative changes a little bit because now, hey, we can actually win a game when it's tight. Maybe that extra step, and they could follow that lead. Again, Manning sets the tone here. Beckham sets the tone. And I think the younger Giants really should follow what they do.
Well, if Levac did do a podcast at 9 o'clock at night in practice, maybe he'd be a little better at this point.
Why me?
Armin and Levac, 104.5 The Team. Art Stapleton with the record joining us, covers the Giants every single day.
Art, is this a situation where a win like this kind of cools off that hot seat that Tom Coughlin's been sitting on?
The hot seat is definitely there for the media and the perception outside the building. John Mara made it very clear last year that had he made the decision after the Jacksonville loss, the debacle of a loss the Giants had last year, that everyone in the building would have been fired. And I think the Giants kind of set that tone, from top, that as much as they are upset week to week, they will make a decision after the season, and it will be based on whether or not they believe Tom Coughlin is the best man to coach this team. That being said, the first hurdle in the final 4 games, this fourth quarter for the Giants, was cleared on Monday night. They are nowhere close to clinching the NFC East and a spot in the playoffs. So if the seat was hot before Monday night, it's as warm as it was then. Just because now you've got an undefeated Carolina Panthers team coming here, and there is a scenario where if the Giants lose to Carolina and the Eagles and Redskins both win this week, the following week, if the Eagles-Redskins game does not end in a tie, that the Giants would be eliminated from the division. So the reality is they're still rooting against the Eagles and the Redskins. They're still rooting for their own team. But if you assess the 3 contenders, there's no question that the Giants have the toughest road to hoe these next 3 weeks going to the playoffs.
Art Stapleton of The Record with Armin and Levac, 104.5 The Team. We're live from All-Star Wine and Spirits. Art, you mentioned the undefeated Panthers playing the Giants this weekend. Josh Norman, the talented corner, against Odell Beckham Jr. How much should we expect OBJ's production to go down this weekend?
Well, I mean, when you consider Beckham's production to this point, 6 straight 100-yard games, he continues to. It seems like he pulls out a long touchdown pass every game. Norman's good. Norman's going to size up and go after him one-on-one if he's on the outside. Carolina has not moved Norman and traveled him into the slot where we know Beckham likes to line up at times. So I think that will be interesting to see how much the Giants change their game plan in order to stay away from Norman. Look, his production, I mean, you can't imagine that he's going to keep it up and go for 166 against the kind of player like Norman is. But let's not forget, guys, last year in Seattle, when Richard Sherman's reputation and potential was at the top of the game, the Giants went after Richard Sherman with Odell Beckham.
104.5 The Team.
And, they have not shied away from putting Beckham in situations. It's almost like you'd rather see him in one-on-one situations than a situation like they would say, all right, well, we're going to put 2 guys over the top, and now you're going to have to face double and triple coverage. So I think the Giants are going to go after Norman if they can, and only because they're going to go to Beckham. And it'll be very interesting to see how they play out. I think Norman will win some battles. I think Beckham will win some battles. But again, that's one of the biggest things that came out of Miami is the fact that they got Reuben Randall going again. They got a little bit of a running game when Rashad Jennings carried 22 times. That's kind of how the Giants have to play this week. The biggest difference is that when the Giants played the Patriots, it was viewed as house money earlier this season. The Giants weren't facing as dire straits as they are right now. This is not house money against the undefeated Patriots. This is a game that the Giants must win in order to stay compete. So you got to go to your best player. You can't shy away from competition. But Beckham Norman is going to be definitely one to watch this weekend.
Art, we actually saw the Giants feature a running back. Rashad Jennings gets 22 carries in the game, really effective. Can we hope to see that for the rest of the season?
Well, I was calling for this a couple weeks ago. I actually called for it in the first quarter the other night. It just seemed like a Rashad Jennings kind of game. His patience to pick through traffic is probably his greatest asset right now. I don't know. I haven't really broken down the numbers yet as far as what Carolina can do, against the run. But the reality is, this is a game that the Giants need to do whatever they can up front to kind of slow down Carolina's passing attack. Their pass rush. So I think Jennings will be the key guy here. I think they have to still get Vereen involved. The idea that Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis kind of control the middle of the field for the Carolina defense. And one of the assets the last couple of weeks has been the emergence of Will Tye. So the Giants need to be able to run and establish the run, and I think Jennings is the best guy to get that. So, with Ben McAdoo, it's really been anybody's guess this year, Ben McAdoo and Tom Coughlin, as far as what the game plan is going to be. But if I were designing and drawing up the game plan this week, Jennings would be my guy. I would run him, again, 20, 25 times in this game just because you got to keep Carolina honest and you can't let them tee off on Eli Manning.
Our boy Art Stapleton, if you care about the Giants, you care about Art, at Art_Stapleton on Twitter, doing his thing for the record. Art, great talking to you as always, my friend. Thanks for the scoop today, man.
Hey, no problem, guys. Thanks for having me on anytime.